The first time I saw the compound interest curve on a real spreadsheet, not a textbook diagram, but an actual 30-year projection based on a specific monthly contribution and a specific return rate, the shape of it changed how I understood money permanently. The left side of the curve is nearly flat. Years 1 through 7 look like a straight line barely rising off the floor, and then somewhere around year 8 or 9 the line bends. By year 15, it's steep. By year 25, it's almost vertical. The numbers on the right side of the chart don't look like they belong to the same formula as the numbers on the left. But they do. Same contribution, same return, same person. The only variable is time. That curve has 3 inflection points. 3 moments where the math noticeably shifts. And those 3 moments correspond to 3 numbers that most people pass through without realizing something fundamental has changed underneath them. I'm Warren. 2 people are going to walk through those 3 numbers today. Same starting salary, same city, same age, different outcomes at each threshold. By the end, the gap between them will explain why milestones matter more than motivation. Devin and Priya both started working in Portland at 25. Both earned about $55,000. Both carried small credit card balances. Both opened Fidelity Roth IRAs the same summer after watching the first few videos on this channel. At 25, they were indistinguishable on paper. By 35, the paper told 2 completely different stories. Milestone 1, $10,000. This is the number from the first video in the series, and it's not important because of compound interest. At 10,000, compound interest is barely visible. The reason this number matters is psychological. Below 10,000, the person's financial identity is reactive. Money arrives, money leaves, emergencies are managed by credit cards, and the dominant emotion around finances is anxiety or avoidance. If you've ever felt a twist in your stomach when opening a banking app, that's the below 10,000 feeling. Above 10,000, something shifts. The person begins to see themselves as someone who has money. Not a lot, but some. Enough to absorb a car repair without borrowing. Enough to watch the balance survive a bad month. Enough to stop checking the account out of fear and start checking it out of curiosity. Devin hit 10,000 at 27. He'd been following the pyramid from video 7, contributing to his Roth IRA on autopilot, building the emergency fund in a Marcus account. The day the Fidelity app showed 5 digits for the first time, he was sitting in a coffee shop on Hawthorne Boulevard on a Saturday morning. He didn't tell anyone. He just looked at it and felt something loosen in his chest. The anxiety that had been sitting there since his first rent payment in college started to dissolve. Not because 10,000 is a lot, because 10,000 is proof. Proof that the system works. Proof that dollars can accumulate instead of just cycle through. Priya also hit 10,000 around the same time, but 3 months later, her car's transmission failed. Repair estimate, $3,200. She pulled the money from her emergency fund, which dropped the balance below the threshold. That's normal. That's what the fund is for. But the psychological effect was real. The 5-digit number that had made her feel stable was gone, and the anxiety returned. She didn't rebuild the fund immediately. She paused her Roth contributions for 4 months, telling herself she'd restart once the balance recovered. Those 4 months became 6. 6 became 9. By the time she resumed, Devin had been compounding for 9 additional months. The math of that gap seems small at 27. It isn't small at 45. This is the pattern of the first milestone. Crossing it changes identity. Falling back below it risks resetting that identity. The protocol is the same as video 8. Automate the rebuild. Don't wait for motivation. Set the transfer. Let the system restore the threshold while the brain adjusts. Milestone 2. $100,000. This is the milestone that separates early accumulation from real momentum. Below $100,000, the portfolio's growth is driven almost entirely by contributions. The person is doing all the lifting. The money isn't helping much. Above $100,000, compound interest becomes a visible contributor. At 7% average annual return, a $100,000 portfolio generates roughly $7,000 in growth per year. That's nearly $600 a month in market returns alone before any new contributions are added. The money starts pulling its own weight. Devin crossed $100,000 at 32. 5 years of consistent Roth contributions, 401k match captured every paycheck, the split deposit running like clockwork. He'd increased his savings rate twice after raises using the 1 raise 1 increase rule from video 9. At 100,000, the Fidelity app started showing monthly growth figures that rivaled his contributions. Some months the market added more than he did. He described the feeling as watching a second person show up to help carry the load. For 5 years, he'd been carrying it alone. Now the portfolio was helping. Priya at 32 had roughly 41,000. The 9-month pause after the transmission repair, combined with a period of inconsistent contributions during a job change at 29, had put her behind. She was still contributing, still following the system mostly. But the gap between 41,000 and 100,000 is vast in compound terms because every dollar Devon had above her was compounding while hers wasn't. By 32, Devon's portfolio was generating roughly 7,000 a year in passive growth. Priya's was generating roughly 2,900. The difference in growth alone, not contributions but growth, was over 4,000 a year. And that difference was widening every month. The math of this gap deserves attention because it reveals something counterintuitive. Priya wasn't far behind in dollar terms, 41,000 versus 100,000. But in compound terms, she was years behind because the dollars Devon accumulated early had been multiplying for 5 more years than hers. If you've ever heard the phrase, time in the market beats timing the market, this is what it means in practice, not a slogan. A measurable gap between two people who started at the same time and diverged because one paused and the other didn't. The early dollars matter most. And early isn't about age, it's about when the dollars enter the market and begin compounding. Here's the part of milestone 2 that rarely gets discussed, and it's the part that matters most for anyone stuck between 10,000 and 100,000 right now. The zone between those two numbers is the hardest stretch in all of personal finance. The contributions feel heavy because the portfolio isn't helping yet. The progress feels slow because compound interest needs mass before it generates visible returns. The temptation to stop, to pause, to redirect money towards something more immediately rewarding is highest in this zone. If you're in this zone, here's what it looks like from the inside. The balance sits at 30, 40, 50,000 for what feels like years. The monthly contribution adds a few $100s, the market adds a few hundred more maybe. Some months the market takes back more than it gave. The total barely moves. Meanwhile, the person next to the investor, the one who isn't investing at all, appears to be living a better life. New car, vacation, upgraded apartment. The investor is putting $400 a month into VTI and watching the balance fluctuate by roughly the same amount in either direction. It feels pointless. It's not, but it feels that way. Devon stayed in the zone for roughly 4 years. From 27 to 31, his balance climbed from 10,000 to about 68,000. 4 years, $58,000 of growth, almost all from contributions, barely any from compounding. He said there was a Thursday night in year 3 where he sat at his kitchen table in Portland, rain on the window, Fidelity app open, and seriously considered stopping. Not because he was struggling financially, because the progress felt disproportionate to the effort. $400 a month for 3 years and the balance was 44,000. The math was right. The feeling was wrong. He closed the app and didn't stop. But he remembered that night because it was the closest he came. Every person in this series who built real wealth pushed through this stretch without stopping. The compliance officer from video 2, the surgeon from video 3, Marcus from video 4, Adriana from video 9. They all described the same experience, a long period where the number barely moved, followed by a point where it started moving on its own. That point is 100,000. Getting there is a grind. Getting past it is momentum. And the grind is where most people quit, not because the math stopped working, but because the math hasn't started showing results yet. Milestone 3, $1 million. Devon crossed 1 million at 44. 19 years of consistent investing. No stock picks, no side hustles, no windfalls. VTY and VXUS in an 80-20 split, rebalanced once a year. At 1 million, the compound math reverses the relationship between person and portfolio entirely. At 7%, a $1 million portfolio generates roughly 70,000 in annual growth. If Devon's salary at 44 is 85,000, his portfolio's annual growth is 82% of his salary. The money is nearly earning as much as he is. By year 22 or 23, the portfolio's growth will exceed his income. That's the crossover point from video 18's title. And it means that from this point forward, contributions become increasingly irrelevant compared to growth. The portfolio doesn't need Devin anymore. Devin needs the portfolio. Priya at 44 has roughly 310,000. Respectable? Growing? But the compound gap between 310,000 and 1 million is not 700,000. It's 700,000 plus the compounding on that 700,000 for every remaining year. By 60, Devin's portfolio is projected at roughly 3.2 million. Priya's is projected at roughly 940,000. Same starting salary, same city, same Fidelity app. The difference? Consistency through the grind zone, and 9 months of paused contributions at 27 that cascaded through 18 years of compounding. If you run these numbers on a compound calculator tonight, using your own balance and your own contribution, that projection will show exactly where the curve bends for that specific situation. That's the milestone coming next. The question is only when. The numbers are stark. But this video isn't about the numbers. If it were, a spreadsheet would have been enough. This video is about the shifts. 3 shifts that happen at 3 thresholds, and they're not financial shifts. They're identity shifts. At 10,000, the shift is from anxiety to stability. The person stops being someone who worries about money and becomes someone who has a buffer. That buffer, small as it is, changes decision-making. The credit card stops being the first option during emergencies. The checking balance stops triggering dread. The app gets opened with curiosity instead of fear. At 100,000, the shift is from effort to momentum. The person stops being the sole engine of growth and starts sharing the load with compound interest. The monthly statement becomes evidence that time is working, not just contributions. The long flat stretch of the curve starts bending, and the person can feel it. At 1 million, the shift is from accumulation to autonomy. The person stops needing the paycheck to fund the future and starts needing the paycheck only for the present. Work becomes a choice rather than a requirement. If you've ever fantasized about quitting a job but couldn't because of the paycheck, this is the milestone where that fantasy becomes mathematically possible. That's the deepest shift, and it has nothing to do with spreadsheets. It's about what it feels like to wake up on a Monday morning, knowing that the decision to go to work is voluntary. Devin doesn't talk about his portfolio balance, he talks about the Monday morning feeling. Priya is still building. She's at 310,000 and the curve is bending. She'll cross the milestones Devin crossed just later. The math works the same for both of them. The only difference is when each shift arrives, and every month of consistency brings the next one closer. If you're in the grind zone right now between 10,000 and 100,000, and the progress feels invisible, that's the correct feeling for this stage. The curve is flat here, it's supposed to be. The bend is coming. And when it arrives, every month of contributions during the flat stretch will have been the reason it bent. The people who quit in the flat stretch and the people who didn't use the same tools earned similar incomes and had access to the same information. The difference was whether they trusted the curve before they could see it. Here's the question worth carrying out of this video. If the 3 milestones are really identity shifts disguised as financial ones, then the thing worth building isn't the portfolio. It's the version of the person that doesn't stop during the flat stretch. The portfolio follows the identity. Devin's million didn't create his discipline. His discipline created the million. And that discipline was forged in the 4 years between 10,000 and 100,000, when nothing on the screen suggested it was worth continuing. If you can get through that stretch, everything after it is momentum. And momentum, unlike discipline, doesn't require effort. It just requires not stopping. The next video is the anchor of this series, a $500,000 house in 2026, the income required. The down payment math, the hidden costs nobody puts in the listing. The numbers on that one are going to rearrange some assumptions.